What's up guys, I'm Tommy Bowyer and welcome to Movie Rewind, where today I will be explaining to you the concept of a Sony Cinematic Universe. So this is just a concept which has been thrown around a lot recently, especially by Sony producers who are working very closely with Marvel on the Homecoming franchise. So I'm just going to try and explain what this term means, who's been coming up with this idea of a cinematic universe using Spider-Man, and then I'm going to try and see if this is not already happening, because of course we have Venom coming out in 2018, and Sony have been saying that that film is adjacent to Marvel Cinematic Universe. So we're going to just see if Sony are just trying to use Marvel in order to bring about their own Cinematic Universe success. Will it pay off? Well, we're going to have to wait and see. So without further ado, let's get into it. So before we start actually analysing why this term is now being used by Sony, firstly we're going to have to go back to review the Spider-Man franchise as a whole, and especially the involvement of one man, Avi Arad. Now I might be pronouncing his name wrong, but he is huge in the Spider-Man franchise, absolutely huge. He was an executive producer on Spider-Man the Animated Series back in the early 90s. He was one of the first people to actually come up with the concept of creating a Spider-Man movie, and he did get his wish. He worked very closely with Sam Raimi on the original Tobey Maguire Spider-Man trilogy. And, you know, he was really good for the franchise. He was very creative and he understood the character. He understood what it was about. So I think that Avi Arad, for starters, was very good with Spider-Man. And I do think he is one of these pioneering people who came up with the idea of a comic book movie and kind of broadened it, so we are now in this comic book success that we are now experiencing in the film industry. But when the Spider-Man trilogy ended, Avi Arad then went on to write a successive story. He went on to produce the two Amazing Spider-Man films, directed by Mark Webb and starring Andrew Garfield. And he had increased involvement in these films, especially the Amazing Spider-Man 2, which I don't like. I think it's too crammed. It's trying to do a Marvel film. It's trying to connect all these things. It's trying to broaden this thing, saying, look, we got a movie for the Sinister Six, we got a movie, we got Felicia Hardy in there, so we can have a Black Cat movie. So I think that's especially where Avi Arad came out. And we've seen it with Justice League in 2017. Movies don't understand that Marvel had to build up many years in order to get the Avengers going. And that's what happened. Avi Arad, he just thought he could do Marvel in just one film, and he failed at that. And when Spider-Man Homecoming, they agreed to do it, but they didn't want Avi Arad to have a massive involvement, because Avi Arad, he's quite arrogant, he thinks he's what's right for the franchise, and he failed with the Amazing Spider-Man franchise. But in recent years, we've seen him kind of come back, we've seen him kind of get his claws wrapped around the Spider-Man franchise again, and he's coming up with this idea of a Sony Cinematic Universe in which Sony produce and direct loads of Spider-Man movies based on Tom Holland's Spider-Man. But Tom Holland's Spider-Man movies will still be written by the producers and writers at Marvel Studios. So in many ways, Sony are feeding off from Marvel's success. It's a very clever strategy, and it's what a lot of Spider-Man fans, including myself, were fearing, that Sony would just go into Marvel because, you know, they didn't really know where to go with the character. Now Spider-Man is popular again. Now Tom Holland has made Spider-Man a household name again. Avi Arad and the Sony producers are going to use that success in order to pioneer their own films, and that's what everyone's concerned about. So we're now going to get into the dynamics of the Sony Cinematic Universe, what this could include, and where it could take Sony in the future. So to start off, I think I will just say that the first film in the Sony Cinematic Universe is going to be Venom, coming out in 2018. Now I know a lot of people are unsure about this movie, including myself. It does star Tom Hardy as Venom, but we haven't really seen him as Venom yet, which I suppose we can't complain. You know, it's coming out in a few months, so it's, you know, we shouldn't really be complaining about that. But the major thing is that this film is one of the first films in which Sony have said, yeah, Tom Holland's Spider-Man does exist in this universe, but he's not involved with Venom's story, which a lot of people are unsure about because, you know, Spider-Man and Venom are very interlinked. Their origin story is very closely linked. So it really seems strange that they're going to do a Venom movie without Spider-Man having any involvement in it. But that's enough on that. That's a completely different discussion. Basically, Venom 2018 is the first movie, I think, included in the Sony Cinematic Universe. Now, we don't know what they're going to do after this. Of course, their original plans were to have a Black Cat movie, a Spider-Woman movie, a Sinister Six movie. So there could be all of these things being included in this cinematic universe Sony are trying to create. And while I think some people are, you know, happy about the idea. They're like, oh, well, Marvel are never going to create a hardcore Venom movie, so let Sony do it. But the problem is, Sony have struggled so much since the end of the original Spider-Man trilogy to understand the character of Spider-Man. People like Avi Arad, who used to understand the character, have now lost it. They're now getting lost in this Marvel machine. They think that the only way they can create a good comic book movie is by creating a cinematic universe, which is not true. We had hundreds of successful superhero movies which weren't part of a cinematic universe. And while Marvel have been the first to do it, we don't need people copying it. We really do not need people copying it. And that's what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned that Sony think that now that Tom Holland's Spider-Man has been so successful, that they can just leech on that success, that people will come and see Venom and other produced Sony films because, you know, Spider-Man Homecoming was a brilliant success. But Spider-Man Homecoming had Marvel's involvement. Marvel were very significant in Homecoming's success. Sony do not have that potential. I mean, I might be wrong, but in my views, the Sony Cinematic Universe shouldn't exist. I think it is too similar to Marvel's ideas, and I think Sony will just mess up again. It's going very, very close to where the Amazing Spider-Man franchise went. It's getting very, 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 very close to that idea of just cramming a lot of stuff in a film. But as I said, we don't specifically know the details yet. I suppose we're going to have to see if Venom is successful. Then Sony might just announce that they've got a whole line of Spider-Man related films in production. But obviously we won't know until Venom's successful. So I guess we're just going to have to wait. So anyway guys, thanks for watching. Please do remember to smash that like button and subscribe. And if you have any views on the idea of a Sony Cinematic Universe, then just comment down below and I will discuss it with you if your view's different from mine, because that's the important thing about the film industry. There are so many different views. You don't have to just follow my view. You don't have to follow someone else's view. You're allowed to create your own opinion. So anyway, thanks for watching. I do hope you enjoyed this news review. As for the future, I am working on a couple of projects. I know I keep promising the first installment in my Should It Be Cancelled series, and I think I'll just get it out of the way now that the Should It Be Cancelled series is no longer going to be a series. It's just going to be a one-off special in which I talk about the series called Red Dwarf and whether that series should be cancelled, because there's a lot of different opinions on whether that series should be cancelled or not. So I'm sorry on that. I thought I could do that series, but I don't have the time. Of course, I am working on other series. They're still in development. The Summer 2018 special, hope you've seen the trailer, is still in development, but that will be out in the summer. So anyway, thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you around. See ya!